that take the time. Some of them, what time is it in Australia now, Chris?
No, we're on with Denver today, Dr. P.
Okay, we're in Denver. But you know, the other ones that are, you know, they're 23 hours ahead of us.
When we do Australia,
Yeah.
it'll be 7:15 the following morning on Friday
Yeah.
when he talks to us here on Thursday afternoon.
Right. They'll be ahead of us.
Daniel, are you with us?
I am. Good afternoon, Chris.
Good afternoon to you, my friend. I can't see you on my screen. Are you hiding?
Can you all see me?
Hey, Ashi, do you see Daniel?
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
we all see him.
I'm coming. I'll set up that for you.
Oh, we got Skylar O'Brien on here.
Chris, it's Ron. I can see Daniel.
Hey, Ron.
Hi, how are
I
you?
can't see you though.
Wait a minute.
I'm
I
hiding.
got my technical advisor. Oh, there you are. You're premium branded.
There you go. That's right. There a lot of different things we can think about that, Chris. But yes.
Okay. Well, we got a nice crowd, and Daniel, I don't want to take any more of your time here. Let's get started. We have our dean with us, Dean Radesh Palakurthi. You'll see him in the screen. And our student advisor is Peggy Callahan. You'll see her name on the screen too. And Dr. Silks, Carol Silks is one of our professors. Oh, we got a real star-studded cast today, don't we?
Thank you very much for doing this. We really appreciate you speaking to our students. It's a wonderful opportunity. So welcome.
It is such a pleasure, Dean. And Chris, I'll take my cue from you and Dean. I'm happy to provide an overview of who I am and the company that I'm with today. Can provide perhaps a little bit of insight in terms of what's going on at the moment, share some perspectives, and then perhaps open it up to questions and answers to the extent that I'll be able to answer any of the great questions I'm sure that will be coming up. So if that works for you, Chris and Dean, I'm happy to jump in.
Daniel, that's fine. I just want to let everyone know that I have never met you personally, but I've heard a lot about you for a long time.
Well, I'm sorry about that, Chris.
Well, you're too much of an international troubleshooter, I guess, Daniel.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right?
That's a great. That's a very, very kind message.
Can I make a request to everybody to mute your mics unless you have a question, please? Except Daniel, of course. That would really help with the background noise. So
Good idea.
I would really appreciate it.
Good idea.
Yeah, thank you. So Daniel, we have your, you have our undivided attention now.
Yeah.
One more thing. I worked with Daniel's father 30 years ago at Holiday Inn. And I was one of the sales guys here in Memphis. And Daniel's father, Lewis, was international sales guy over in Europe with Holiday Inn International. And we would run into each other once in a while. And I still had your father's
want to come
email
up, so we're
address.
just going to charge you for the smaller one and give you the big one.
So without further,
Yeah, I know.
without
That's why I'm
hesitation,
like, it won't come up. Screw it.
are we still getting feedback?
Do you want to leave the tour today?
Yeah, I think, Ashik, can you mute everybody?
I guess, maybe.
Did we run out already?
Ashik, can you mute everybody? Is that possible?
Oh, he left for like 6 bottles left?
Yeah, three bottles of shampoo.
Okay, so yeah, I don't feel bad at all.
Yeah, oh yeah, I mean, last time I was here, it was $95, maybe $230.
Oh my god.
Okay, stand by, Daniel.
Oh,
We got
yeah.
Of a wife and 2 daughters.
Oh my god.
I'm
Tech
trying to
glitch.
see if I can send
Oh
them
yeah,
a
they're stealing
message.
all your crap.
Yeah, so when they start doing this,
Some of them,
Oh my god.
some of them need to. Okay. Who else? Okay.
Sounds good.
Oh, Chris, it seems like you may be muted at the moment.
I'm back. Let's get started. Daniel, please take the stage if you would. Daniel is my my new friend, president of Sage Hotel Management in Denver, and he's going to tell you a little bit about himself, and he's going to tell you a little bit about Sage. So please, Daniel, go ahead.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you so much, Dean and Peggy, Dr. Sills, and all of you for spending a couple of minutes with me today. I'll share a little bit of my background with you and dive a little bit into the organization that I'm proud and fortunate to lead today, albeit in the most unusual circumstances and challenging times that we all face today. I was born and raised in Belgium and Europe. In a multicultural, multilingual family. My father, who worked with Chris and with Ron, who's with us today as well, is Spanish and my mother's Italian. And at home I'd speak Italian, and at school I'd speak a couple of other languages. In Belgium, as you know, we have three official languages, Dutch, which is my native tongue, French, German, and then since we can't understand one another, we all speak English. And so that basically provided me with a nice foundation, with a good solid set of languages that I could use to basically travel around the world, which I've done since I was 2 years old. And in these 45 years of my lifetime, I've had the pleasure of visiting over 70 countries, working across the world in 70 countries and nurturing relationships in all of those countries. And I'm happy to share my perspectives with you on what that looks and feels like and what I've picked up as a result of that immersion for all these years. I moved, after my studies, I studied economics in Belgium and Spain. And I studied economics primarily because back in the 90s in Belgium, there was no business college degree and there was no hospitality college degree. And so for me, who from very early on knew that I was going to pursue an opportunity in hospitality, I basically had only one choice that was in the direction of that, and that was studying economics. I finished my master's and then moved to Miami and worked in Miami with a couple of great industry icons, one of which is on the phone with us today, Ron Roy, and we basically worked for a company called Melia Hotels International, which is one of the largest international hotel chains based out of Spain. And I actually moved to Miami for a 6-month period, effectively as a internship. And what was going to be 6 months turned into effectively 4 years. And it allowed me that role as a marketing coordinator that I joined at the time, basically allowed me to get to know the Americas because we were in charge with that office in Miami for basically the entire Americas region. And most of the hotels, luxury hotels, leisure and business hotels were basically spread across Mexico, Central America, the Caribbean, and South America, as they are today. Great foundation, great company to be with. I subsequently transitioned to Amadeus, which you may be familiar with, which is the largest global distribution company based out of Spain, and spent time with them to really build out their infrastructure and their network of travel agencies across all of Latin America. And in 2002 was called by a company that at the time was known as Sendan Corporation, which was the precursor to 4 pure play companies that spun off in 2008. And I joined them as a head of marketing for 2 of the hotel chains that they had back then, one of which was Wingate, which is now Wingate by Wyndham. And I spent a couple of years with them, first focused on the domestic market on the marketing side. And in 2005, we bought a big portfolio of Ramada hotels from Marriott, who divested that business. We absorbed it, and suddenly that company that was called Cendant Corporation at the time transitioned to Wyndham. The original footprint of Cendant Corporation's hotel portfolio was all economy, mid-scale hotels across the US, and only 40 hotels internationally. And suddenly we went from 40 hotels internationally to 250 hotels internationally. And so we had brands in the economy space like Days Inn, Super 8, in the mid-scale like Ramada, and then eventually in upscale with Wyndham. So I spent a couple of years running around the world, averaging about 250,000 miles a year in travel, basically continuing to grow our portfolio around the world and focusing on sales and marketing. Until 2008, when I basically came back after spending 6 weeks on the road nonstop, having been in 17 countries. And I decided that after so much on the road, I wanted to spend a little bit more time in the corporate office. And our CEO at the time offered me the opportunity to head up strategy for the company globally, which I ended up doing for a couple of years, and was an incredible experience to have a staff position in a multi-billion-dollar public company focused on how do we grow this business. I remember very clearly that in 2009, which you remember was sort of the onset of the financial crisis, our share price was $5. When I left in 2013, our share price was basically close to $100 because the company had figured out a very nifty way to really accelerate the growth of the business, not just through acquisitions. Every 18 months, we would acquire a new brand and a new hotel company, but also by growing internationally. So we grew the portfolio from 40 hotels when I joined internationally to over 2,000 hotels. I ran, before I left in 2013, a lifestyle brand called Trip Hotels. And I also ran Latin America and the Caribbean, which had about 130 hotels at the time. Then in 2013, as it always happens, things suddenly come to you, and I had an opportunity to join an organization called Dine Brands Global. It's a public company, and they are basically the owners of IHOP and Applebee's. You may have experienced IHOP and Applebee's at some point in time. It's the largest full-service restaurant company in the world with over 4,000 restaurants. And they asked me to oversee the international division, which was stifling. And so that was a great opportunity. I knew relatively little about the restaurant business on its own. Obviously, hotels have restaurants, but as you know, most hotels with a restaurant struggle to make a profit. And so I thought it was important to diversify my knowledge base and fact base, and really learn a little bit more about food and beverage, or F&B as we call it dearly. So in the 4 years, or nearly 4 years that I was with the organization, we grew that portfolio, and we basically nearly doubled the portfolio in those couple of years. And I'm happy to share more insights in terms of how we did that. But what I would say is the main takeaway when you do business around the world is don't assume that you know what works simply because it works in your main country. Because as you go around the world, what works here, for instance, an Applebee's 5,000 square foot with a big bar in the middle of the restaurant that is meant to be the heart and soul of that operation does not translate to the Middle East. Because as you know, liquor is not allowed in standalone restaurants, with the exception of restaurants that are in hotels. So spent a couple of years there, and then was in 2017 was invited by SBE, which you may have heard of. It's now part of Accor Hotels, but SBE is a lifestyle hospitality firm, and they're famous for their Delano, Mondrian brands, really luxury product. And I was brought in to basically create a growth engine with their portfolio of bars, restaurants, and nightlife, which included the largest clubs, nightclubs on the West Coast. Now, what I'll tell you is that I had never run nightclubs before in my life. And I can tell you that it's definitely more fun to visit a nightclub than to operate a nightclub. And again, if we have time, I'm happy to share some of the insights of what it takes to run a nightlife operation and some of the complications associated with that. In conjunction with my time at SBE, I founded a firm called Passionality. And the Passionality Group was really set up in 2017 to provide small, innovative concepts and their founders an opportunity to grow by providing them smart capital. And smart capital basically is a combination of experience as a result of 10 partners and I having amassed hundreds of years of experience in working with companies around the world, hospitality companies around the world, and capital as a result of equity that we brought to the table. So in the past 3 years, that group basically established a collection of about 10 brands that we've been nurturing over the last couple of years to grow around the world. And again, happy to speak more to that and what it takes to set up effectively a venture capital or a venture platform that allows these small sort of emerging concepts to grow and the perils associated with that. Last year, I met the founder of Sage Hospitality, which is a company that I'm with now. And we fell in love. We started courting, and late last year, in December, I decided to join this firm where I sit today and I speak to you from our offices here in Denver, Colorado. Sage Hospitality was founded 37 years ago by Walter Eisenberg and Zach Neumeier, both exceptional hoteliers, but also incredibly connected with community and politics. And both gentlemen have done an incredible job in creating a company to be with and stay with. And so I felt there was a great opportunity to come and assist them in continuing to grow this portfolio over the course of these years to come. Little did I know in December that in March 15th, we'd be getting ready to effectively suspend operations across our 53 hotels that pre-COVID were generating $1 billion in sales. Little did I know that on March 17th, when I was relocating from LA to Denver, that we had to make the decision, or that we would be making the decision to furlough 91% or over 5,000 of our 6,132 associates. Little did I know that we were going to go into an environment in April where we were effectively running 3% occupancy in a month where we would have been running on average 70 to 75% occupancy. Little did I know that from a 27,000 square foot office building where we housed 150 people, I would be in a war room locked up with Walter, our founder, our head of HR, and a few more people during this entire pandemic to figure out what we would do in order to survive. And the reality is that we didn't have a roadmap, and we didn't know what was going to happen. And so I'll tell you that in my 25-year career, it was definitely one of the most challenging times that I can ever remember. And what I can also tell you that from challenge comes the greatest opportunity, provided that you have two things, actually three things. One, provided that you are surrounded by incredible people resulting from a exceptional culture. And I'll tell you, if I've learned anything in my career and in my life is the number one, the most important thing that really matters is culture and people. The rest follows. Secondly, that you are in an environment where you have a healthy balance sheet so that you can withstand a significant amount of time where your company may be cash flow negative, or your property may be cash flow negative. And three, equally important, that you have the desire to really confront this challenge and turn it into an opportunity. And so I'll provide a little bit of insight on what we've been working over here in the last couple of months, in the hope that it inspires you, and hopefully this ramble provides you with some insights for some potential dialogue here in question and answers. So when we suspended virtually all of our properties in April, the first thing we did was cash preservation. How do we ensure that we limit any expenses that are unnecessary, minimize and reduce any costs in the model, and effectively create skeleton crews that could manage our properties and keep them open, make sure that they were in good stead without obviously any guests in staying with us. The second activity we did was basically reforecasting what the rest of the year looked like. We're very fortunate in Sage in that we are basically a company that consists of four complementary companies underneath the umbrella company, the umbrella parent company, which is called Sage Hospitality. One of my sister companies is Sage Investments. Sage Investments basically analyzes every single investment that we do across our portfolio. We've invested in about 41% of our portfolio. And that team basically analyzed every single downturn over the last couple of decades and looked at every single piece of data that was available and created a basis for new forecasts to look at what our ramp guidance would be for occupancy ADR, not just for the rest of the year, but for the next 36 months. We then took that information, provided that to each one of our properties, and we jointly created a new reforecast for the rest of the year based on what we knew in May for the rest of the year. We also told all of our partners, all of our owners, that we were going to be 100% wrong. And in fact, we were 100% wrong. Because just in August, even though we exceeded our forecasts in July by a fair amount, and we exceeded our forecasts in August by a fair amount, we realized, unfortunately, that the summer, as evidenced by several of you who may be watching the news, especially here in Denver, as we had snow here a couple of days ago, the summer does not last into fall and winter, unfortunately. And so we took our forecast that we knew was 100% wrong, but still conservative, we took it down further to ensure that we plan for the worst and hope for the best. And effectively today, ladies and gentlemen, if you visit us, which I hope you do, let them know that I send you. Hopefully they take good care of you. If not, let me know. Call me. But as you go into our hotels, our luxury hotels, our upscale independent hotels, our full service hotels effectively are running with a staff that is closer to a select service hotel. And our select service hotels are running practically like a bed and breakfast. What does that mean? It means that our general managers, our valets, it means that they're stripping the beds. It means that they're running a shift in the restaurant. And you're talking about, we manage the only Ritz-Carlton that is a franchise, and that is around the world. So to give you a sense, these are luxury general managers, luxury property general managers that are effectively doing jobs today that they may not have held for 30 years. And so that is obviously providing a greater set of humility for everybody, and it also provides for greater for greater synergy and great opportunity to learn, listen to the guests, but also bond with the very limited caretaker staffs that we now have in each and every single one of the properties. The second thing we did beyond cash preservation and managing our business in the worst possible case scenario from a cash flow standpoint was creating a strategic platform that we called Sage Forward. And Sage Forward is a task force that is run by a multidisciplinary set of team members across the entire portfolio at all levels that have come up with recommendations, standard operating procedures, training materials on two main areas. One, health and safety for associates and our guests, and two, the evolution of experiences in the now normal. By the way, we coined a term that we launched when we started talking about what was happening in this new environment, and we coined it that we are operating in the now normal. Because most people are talking about new normal, but the reality, what we figured out was that every day, every hour, every minute, something can change. And therefore, it automatically taught us that what is relevant today, i.e., it's optional to wear masks, is not relevant in an hour or so. So like that, I can give you numerous examples of how things change on a very, very fast basis. So the truth is, and I'll share this with you, and I haven't even shared this with my team yet, I think we've gone from new normal to an environment to now normal, and I think we're heading into next normal. And so I'm happy to have any insights on how you would envision implementing that. So anyway, that Sage Forward initiative allowed us to basically ensure that we were evolving the experiences, i.e. Live music in the hallways of our hotels with social distancing, music in our courtyards with people being able to witness music from the rooms overlooking the courtyards. Creative and innovative ways to really provide experiences to people that are aching for it within the confines of COVID. The third piece that I'll share with you is we decided early on that we were not only going to survive because we had the strong balance sheet, we had strong partners with significant capital behind us, but we were going to actually turn this challenge into an opportunity. We've created basically a development task force. We have 7 people, in fact, that are doing nothing else but reaching out to existing owners, former partners, potential partners, different organizations and smaller management companies that need help and that don't have a stronger balance sheet and the opportunity to ride the storm. And we've effectively, as a result of this strategy, we are on track to actually significantly exceed our growth in terms of new hotels that we're adding to the portfolio versus the last several years in the history of the company. And that's primarily because our partners thought that we were doing a good job. We've been communicating with our owner partners since day one, telling them exactly what we're doing, why we're doing it, involving them. And as a result of that, they've been reaching out to us, providing us additional opportunities. We just took two new properties in California, and I can't share this with you in more detail, but we will be announcing soon a few more properties that we'll be adding onto the portfolio that otherwise we would have never added to the portfolio. We're also in conversations with 5 management companies that are looking to potentially take advantage of our platform and the infrastructure that we have. So what I would say in closing, and I've taken perhaps a little bit more time, Chris and Dean, my apologies, to provide the base foundation here, but what I would say is, one, choose wisely who you work with. Love what you do and love who you do it with is what our founder says, and I completely agree with him. Culture could not be more important ever. Secondly, make sure that you take a conservative lens and plan for the worst, hope for the best, and solidify your balance sheet and your really your cash levels. And then 3, look, a great friend of mine said, when this all started in April, we all got together and everybody was shell-shocked from different organizations. And my friend said, look, Daniel, the world is going to end only once, and this isn't it. And I think he's right. And so that being the case, take opportunity to take advantage of this challenge and turn the challenge into your opportunity by leveraging your strengths. And so with that, I close. I hope that I could provide a little bit of insight and perhaps some encouragement for all of you, and I'm here for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel, very much. Can you take some questions?
Absolutely, it would be my pleasure.
Who's up first?
Daniel, I'll go first, not to monopolize the time, but at the customer service level, how has COVID impacted it? What sort of services have you taken away? What have you added? And how if I were a guest in your luxury brand, what would I experience? Yeah,
it's such a great question, Dean. What I would say is we have a tale of 52 cities, if you will, in terms of the 52 properties that we have. So for instance, Perry Lane in Savannah, which is one of our luxury collections, it was actually just awarded one of the top 25 TripAdvisor hotels here in the US. And basically, that property, I was there around Memorial Day. We decided that because the properties in Savannah, Georgia is obviously, as you all know, has been more open. We decided to keep virtually all of the services available. Our pool was open, our rooftop bar was open, our restaurant was open. The bar, the standalone bar, had to be closed because that obviously was ordinance. And frankly, the guests absolutely expected that from us in that particular environment. Now, if I go to, for instance, one of our properties here in in Denver, the Oxford, which is the oldest hotel in town. The Oxford, at first, when we reopened in May, we basically decided not to reopen the restaurant, with the exception of takeout. And so guests, Dean, would be arriving to the hotel, they'd be checking in, and we would be delivering meals to their room. And so I think it really was on a case-by-case basis. What I'll tell you, it's been actually quite challenging to manage a portfolio across so many different districts, because the rules basically change all the time everywhere. And so the task force basically helped us to create one consistent framework very quickly across the entire portfolio, but it allowed enough flexibility to for each one of the general managers to implement and adopt based on their situation at that particular point in time, knowing full well that in the evening or in the next morning it would change.
Thank you.
All right, I have a question. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, go
Yes.
ahead.
All right. So, Mr. Del Olmo.
Hi.
Hey, Vinny, tell them who you are.
Well, I'm Vinny Taylor. I'm the guest services manager at the Westin, and I have had a little growth in the hospitality industry, but I continue going far. I like everything that you talked about today. One question I want to know is, because I know it'll happen again. It happened once in 2009, and it's happening now. What are the differences between the recession and now? What kind of steps that you have to take, in a process? Because I know this probably could happen again in the future once I'm older or something someday.
Yeah, great question. So what I would say is that this obviously is unlike anything that all of us, have ever experienced. And so we believe that this is an opportunity first and foremost. I think past precedents. So we looked at 2001, we looked at 2008. We looked at every possible scenario in the past to understand how that could influence what we might be seeing over the course of these next couple of years. And what we've come to the conclusion of, based on what we know today, and again, everything that I tell you is wrong because it can change instantly, but based on what we know today, we believe that we will not get back to 2019 performance levels until, in most cases, Q3, Q4 23, in some cases 24. Now, in our case, that is primarily because our portfolio, and we intend to stay like this, our portfolio is focused on urban markets. 25% of our business is group related. A large portion of our transient business is all business travel related. And we know that group is going to take a while to come back. We know that business travel is going to take a while. And so we know that it's going to take a while before that comes back. So the lesson going forward, though, I would say is look at Asia. For those of you who have traveled to Asia, and I've been traveling to Asia for 20 years or so, they have already mastered this sort of scenario better. Now, obviously, COVID-19 was really unlike any other one, but with SARS and MERS, etc., the Asian population is already very attuned to wearing masks if they're ill. And by the way, just so you all know, when you go to Asia, at least that's been my experience, people wear masks all the time. I thought that was very weird, but they wear masks in consideration of others. I have to say that I was out on the mountains here, and I was hiking, and people had masks on, or they put masks on, and I felt that sometimes it's in consideration to ourselves, and obviously why it's very important to take care of each and every single one of our health. In Asia, people are actually thinking of others. And so I think there's a lot to learn in how Asian countries are handling these type of situations. So hopefully I answered your question somewhat.
All right, wait, make sure you send us a virtual business card of yours. So I'm definitely interested in doing task force someday. So that sounded very interesting to me also.
You got it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Next
Hey,
question.
Daniel, I have a question for you as well. Thanks again for talking to us. I was reading here your a little bit of your background, and I also saw that you manage about 6,000 associates from different nations. I'm originally from Brazil myself, so I was wondering what are some type of difficulties that you have had, or some of the challenges that you have had by managing people, especially in a couple of different backgrounds and different cultures, different worldviews. And obviously it can be used in the hospitality setting, or it can be used in any setting as well.
Yeah, it's a great question, Felipe. And I've learned that managing and dealing with different cultures is the most rewarding thing that and the most precious gift that anybody can get. And I think the world would be a better place if there was more openness and awareness of the benefit that you can get by working with people from all sorts of backgrounds. And so I found, and actually I've always been a big believer in building multicultural, diverse teams, because it just becomes a richer background. If I hadn't worked with Brazilians before Felipe, I wouldn't know some of the really important notions of what matters to someone that comes from Brazil. And I think that the recommendation that I would give all of you is, first of all, be open. Also recognize that people from around the world may have very, very, very different perspectives from you. In dealing with people from the Middle East, I was fortunate in spending many years doing business with owners that are Middle Eastern. They have a very different approach and perspective on things. And at first it may sound really, really strange and different to what you do. But over time, what you realize is that, if there's a common language of respect and understanding and true interest, intellectual curiosity, I think innate curiosity, when you ask me, what do I look at in people? I don't necessarily look at experience alone. I really focus on how intellectually curious is that person. And how open and aware are they? And I do find that people that have the desire and interest of absorbing other cultures typically are people that I think do well in their careers. So.
Thank you, Daniel.
Obrigado.
Yes. Yeah, almost.
Hello.
Hello, sir. Paul Brennan here. Quick question. As we evolve through COVID with your properties, how have you adapted the port of entry positions? Because you've talked about how you've adapted the overall umbrella, but what about the underlying umbrella, the hourlies, the different positions that need those hours to pay the rent, to put food on their table? How has your company adapted to that with all the restrictions, whether it be in Denver, in California, New York, and such, with all the different regulations?
Yeah, and Paul, just to clarify, is the question how we intend to basically provide opportunities at all levels?
Yes, yes. You talked about how you, when this all came down, how you adjusted, kind of how you went. You spoke about how you looked at the overall vision with the hotels and the opportunities, but you never spoke necessarily about the port of entry positions that supported those visions and adapting to how you do things in your facilities now.
Yeah, so obviously that's a great question, Paul. Yeah, look, I think every hospitality business that I've ever been associated with needs people at all levels, including entry positions, to really thrive and have the ability to operate. And so today, what I tell you is that of the 6,132 associates that we had pre-COVID, we now have almost 2,000 people back. And those 2,000 people that we have brought back are there, and they're basically, again, at all levels of the organization, providing perhaps not just providing the service to the services to our guests, and perhaps not just doing what they were doing before, but likely having an opportunity to perhaps get involved in other roles that stretch them beyond what they were doing before. And so what I tell you, if you ask me what keeps me up at night, and what's kept me up at night since March 17th is how do we get every single one of our 6,132 people back? And in the chair that I sit is I have to balance the fiscal responsibility for our owners and the well-being of our associates. And if we do this in the most respectful manner, then I think our guests will appreciate that. And back to what the dean was saying, we use a tool called Revenate that basically tracks our guest satisfaction scores. And our guest satisfaction scores today are better than they were 4 or 5 months ago, even though our service levels have had to be adjusted. But that's because I think people on both sides, associates are happy to have a job, and guests are really grateful for the service that they're being rendered in this very difficult time. So, Paul, hopefully I address your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Daniel, would you speak for a moment to picking up a second language, if possible? You're quite multilingual, six languages, I think.
Yeah.
And for a lot of us folks, a second language is a real stretch. And of course, the time to start is earlier rather than later. Would you comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was fortunate and privileged, actually more than fortunate, to be raised, Chris, in a multilingual environment where at 4 or 5 years old, there were 4 languages being spoken simultaneously at the dinner table, and I didn't think anything else of that. And so I believe the more you can expose yourself and your family members, children, loved ones, to culture and language, the better. I believe that the language of travel is a very powerful one. I found that even if you know basics, I'll give you an example. Japan, for those of you that have gone to Japan, it's one of my favorite parts of the world. And I obviously, I don't speak Japanese, but I asked a Japanese local to basically provide me with enough vocabulary so that I could follow along. And while I couldn't follow along as much as I wanted to, at least it gave me an opportunity to engage. And I think engaging in other cultures with people that speak that language will effectively create a next level connection that other people that don't have even that basic level of understanding. And so that to me becomes a competitive point of advantage. The other example I'll give you, Chris, because Felipe was on earlier from Brazil. So speaking Spanish and Italian and French gives me enough of a base for Roman languages, but Brazilian or Portuguese is quite different. So it took me a couple of years to figure that out. But what I recognized is I left the embarrassment at home and basically started speaking what is called Portuñol, which is a combination of Spanish and Portuguese. And the reality is, even though it was totally laughable, it gave me an opportunity to create a deeper relationship with our owner partners, with our associates in Brazil. And it just took me a little while, I would say a couple of years. And today I'm totally comfortable in making 1,001 mistakes, but at least I'm trying. So I'd say if you can expose yourself through travel, I think it's a great motivator. And then sooner versus better. And mistakes, I would say if you don't make mistakes, you're not learning languages.
Thanks, Daniel.
Absolutely.
Other questions?
Since nobody's asking, I'll ask another one if you don't mind.
I have a question.
Go ahead,
Can you hear
Brittany.
Hello, how are you?
How are
Hi,
you,
Ms.
Brittany?
Turner.
I'm doing well, thank you. I love hearing about how you have obtained all this experience and have you overcome many challenges. I can't help but to think, like, has this always been your goal to become president? And if not, then what was your initial goal?
That is such a great question, Brittany. And Ron, by the way, who's on the phone, was one of my great mentors and bosses early on. So he'll correct me when I share this. But when I started my job at 22 or so, just after I finished my master's, I literally thought I knew it all. And I thought that I should rise in terms of a title as quickly as possible. And my goal was I wanted to be a vice president by the age of 30. Now, subsequently, I became a vice president at the age of 29. And then since then, sort of beat all of the imaginary objectives that I'd set in my own mind that I thought back then were so important, because I looked at life from a lens of a professional corporate career, and what I thought only mattered was your title. What I realize now is, first and foremost, I realize now, Brittany, that I know nothing. And I say that sincerely because I have spent years of my career trying to convince myself that I knew all of it or most of it, and the reality is I don't, and I never will. And from the moment I do, then perhaps it's time to exit this world. So I think we're never old enough to learn and continue to learn. But what I now understand, Brittany, is that the most important thing that I can do is create impact. And so my personal purpose in life is really to create a positive impact on others so they can create a positive impact on others that they impact. So the truth is, it's the creation of a positive ripple effect. And that doesn't just have to be on a professional level, but also on a personal level. Because when you sit in my chair and you have 6,132 people that you are responsible for, ultimately it is your responsibility to help make a positive difference in their lives so they can make a positive difference in other people's lives. That is more important. And frankly, titles, positions, hierarchy, to me, at least, is no longer important. In fact, I believe in the opposite. When I joined the firm, I basically proposed to the entire organization the notion of servant leadership, which already Walter and Zach had implemented here, but basically I'm here to serve you. And I'm here to serve every single one of our associates around the country, because they ultimately are the ones that really do the job. I'm just here to ensure, to enable that they can be the best they possibly can be. So anyway, that's my very passionate response to your great question, Brittany. Thank you for asking.
My pleasure.
We have about 5 minutes left. We have another question?
Yes.
It's going. Well, it's not really a question, but my name is Linda Andrews, and I was gonna ask a question, but the question that Brittany asked, he clarified a lot of things that I'm actually dealing with myself, like even right here, right now, in the present, in the moment, as far as achieving goals and achieving titles and achieving positions. And some people know that's on here know that I'm military, and I had a goal set and a position and title set way up, and then I end up getting injured, and I had to realize and understand it is not going to be that CW5, that Chief 5 that I make that's really going to impact the soldiers, but it's the knowledge that I have already obtained, and that I pour that into the soldiers where they are and where I am right here, right now. That is really most important. So I thank you for that, because I was struggling with that. I really was. And being in school full-time and working full-time and being in the military, you know, and all of that, I was struggling with that. So I just want to thank you for, you know, summing it up and being transparent and being very humble and with humility. So I thank God for that, for you on today. Thank you so very much.
You're so kind, and thank you for your service, Linda, so much.
Another question. Well, I've got, Dean, did you have one more?
Yeah, if you have time, this way, you know, I just a quick one, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
Daniel, you know, from hearing your initial, again, Linda, thank you for your service, really. We're really glad you joined our program. We really appreciate everything you've done, okay?
Thank you, Dean. I appreciate you all.
Thank you. The, you know, from what you stated in the beginning, it looks like most of the company growth came from acquisitions. And would you say that growing globally, that is a better approach than organic growth? Would you say that, or?
Yeah. So I think that international growth or growth through acquisitions can be really complicated because in a way it can basically have you you know, get distracted by not really focusing on what your core business is. And so, you know, I think in the case of Wyndham Hotel Group, at the time, largest hotel group in the world, 7,000 hotels, 9,000 by the time I left, there was a need to basically find growth because we were adding 40,000 rooms or 400 rooms, 400 hotels roughly every year. And we were losing 400 hotels every year. And so basically the business was stagnant. So organic growth was stagnant. And the street, Wall Street, was asking us to basically deliver up to 3% annual growth, net growth. And so we had to basically find that through acquisitions and we had to find that internationally where, you know, the growth was still ripe. But that came, I would say, with a significant amount of investment. And I would say, you know, acquisitions, I think, are highly risky. Mergers are highly risky, as I think you all know. You know, the number one factor of failures, most mergers and acquisitions fail, but the most important factor is culture. And that's typically overlooked because, you know, it's not on the balance sheet, but it is the most important thing on the balance sheet. And so I think there's a huge amount of risk. And therefore, you know, I today, where I sit with Sage, we are actually focused mostly on organic growth, and we're very, very selective with any acquisitions that we would layer on because of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, Daniel, we've reached the 5:15 p.m. Time limit here, and we thank you very much. And all 23 of us, I understand there are 23 of us on the call. All 23 of us are giving you a silent applause.
It's 43. It was 43, and so some of them had to go. We had 43 people on there. So this is, Daniel, if it makes you feel good, this is the highest turnout we've had for this. So event.
Goodness. Well, I truly hope that it was worth at least a minute or two of your time. I'm so grateful, Dean, Chris, and everyone for having me. I wish you nothing but great success, and I hope to see you all very soon as you start traveling, hopefully sooner than later. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel, very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Say hi to your father.
I will, for sure.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Jim O'Brien, you still on?